Here at Citrus, it's very different from other student media outlets on campus. Here, this year especially, my year was very female heavy with my class, but in previous years it had been almost all male. For other media outlets, it's very male dominated, especially in the sports department. If you go over to Z89, there's not one female in the sports department. AER, there's maybe 3 or 4. So it's very skewed, it's very different, and definitely tell there's a huge gap in the male to female ratio. In the past, it's been kind of more closed off to that sexual tension and that segregation based on whether or not you're a guy or a girl. In the professional world too, it's very closed off to what you expect. You expect to see a guy on desk, you expect to see guys doing football, guys doing basketball. It's very rare you see girls in that position.
Men and women do have different expectations, and I think for women it's especially tough because you pretty much have to know absolutely everything. And I'm not saying that men don't need to know what they're talking about, they obviously do too, but if you don't know as much as your colleague about a certain sport or the history or a certain play, it's immediately assumed you don't know sports, whereas a man might be like, oh, well, he didn't watch that game, whereas if you're a woman, it's like, oh, well, she doesn't know that sport. You have to work twice as hard to be taken seriously.
Because our culture tends to see women as sexual objects on the whole, so, so for one thing that narrows the sort of window in which a woman, you see male sportscasters and broadcasters, they can be old, they can be bald, they can be paunchy, the standards are much broader. Women tend to always look, a certain way, and the minute you get past a certain age, for women it's very hard to maintain a job on air anyway. So I think that's a big chunk of it, that we have these standards and they're so deeply embedded in the media industry as well as in our culture at large.
It's one of those fields where for some reason we're comfortable only having men doing it, and I'm not really sure why. And I think that the only way that it can change is for more and more women to have opportunities, and so then we get used to seeing them on air. People like Doris Burke, people like Beth Mowins calling games, doing all of that. The more and more we see that, the more and more we'll not even notice it and become comfortable with it and become like, it'll just become second nature. It's like, oh yeah, she calls games, that's what she does. But we won't be able to do that until we see it.
I personally love sports. I grew up with sports. There's nothing about sports that I don't love. So me being able to do something that I absolutely love doing every day is huge, and it's really important to me. But it is a little bit frustrating to be in an environment where it's so male dominated, just because it shouldn't be just for men. Girls can play sports. Girls are equally as knowledgeable. I say this in class all the time. There's no chromosome in you to know stats of a basketball team. That's something you learn. And if you have the passion for it, you have the drive for it, then why shouldn't you be able to do it?